Before the headlines, before the rescue missions and the medals, there was only heat, dust, and the dull hum of diesel engines in a foreign land. A company of soldiers stood assembled under the burning Iraqi sun. They were not the heroes that history tends to remember, not elite commandos or armored divisions, but mechanics, drivers, cooks, and fuel haulers, the backbone of an empire on wheels. Their commander's voice cut through the still air. "Stand at ease," he said. "We have our orders. We all know what we're here to do." They nodded, though deep down, none of them truly did. Their task was simple on paper: supply and support. Change the tires, keep the engines running, feed the machine. Without them, the tanks would stall, the convoys would die, and the war would slow to a crawl. "Without us," one soldier muttered, "nothing moves." He wasn't wrong. The convoy stretched for miles. Trucks loaded with food, fuel, spare parts, and ammunition. A long, fragile artery feeding the advancing American front. Dust kicked up around them as the line began to roll. The sound of shifting gears was drowned out by the thundering rhythm of uncertainty. They relied on their GPS, a small, blinking device they called the plugger. It was supposed to guide them through the endless desert, to keep them from getting lost in the maze of sand and silence. But on that morning, the device began to fail. The batteries flickered. The screen dimmed. Somewhere between the static of radios and the endless beige horizon, their coordinates vanished. The captain leaned over the map again and again, sweat tracing lines down his face. "Highway 8 is route blue," he said quietly. "It runs straight to Baghdad." But the truth was, they were already off course. The radio crackled with faint static. "Nighthawk 3, this is Bravo 6. Respond." No answer. They were out of range, out of guidance, and soon, out of luck. As the hours passed, the empty desert gave way to signs of life. Clusters of buildings, scattered farms, and finally, a river. The Euphrates. "Is that the Euphrates, First Sergeant?" someone asked. "Yeah," came the uneasy reply. "We're heading into Nasiriyah." The captain frowned. "We weren't supposed to go through the city." But it was too late. They entered narrow streets, lined with faces, men, women, children, watching silently as the American convoy rolled through. Some waved, others just stared. The smell of dust mixed with diesel and something else. Tension, thick and electric. "Lock and load," the captain ordered, "but do not fire unless fired upon." The first bullet came like a whisper, a sharp crack, echoing down the street. Then came another and another. Windows shattered, men shouted, the convoy erupted into chaos. "Contact! Contact! We're taking fire!" Engines roared, a truck exploded ahead. Flames and smoke turned daylight into shadow.
Baap the convoy. We can't. The road's blocked." The voice of panic spread through the radios like wildfire. Trucks slammed into each other trying to turn around. Bullets tore through the metal walls. Soldiers ducked low, returning fire from open truck beds. Jessica Lind gripped her rifle, her knuckles white. Her truck lurched as the driver tried to swerve away from the ambush. A blast from the side sent them spinning. The Humvee flipped. She hit her head and everything went black. When she woke up, she was no more longer in the desert. The air was cold and stale. A white ceiling, a buzzing light, voices speaking in Arabic. She tried to move, but her body refused. Pain screamed from every limb. She was in a hospital, a prisoner. Through the haze of morphine and the terror, faces came and went. Some curious, others cruel. But among them was one man whose eyes carried no more hate, Dr. Mohammed Al-Rehayev. He saw her lying so fragile, bandaged, trembling, and he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks of war. Pity. "She's just a girl," he sighed quietly. Outside the room, the war continued. Fedayeen fighters used the hospital as a command post, hiding behind patients and the doctors, daring the Americans to attack. The building shook when bombs fell nearby. Patients screamed as plaster rained down. Mohammed knew what could happen to her, what would happen if he did nothing. He had seen what the militia did to prisoners. He had seen what rage and fear did to men. That night, he made his choice. He slipped out of the hospital, through back alleys filled with smoke and rubble. Every shadow was a potential executioner, every noise a warning. But he reached the American lines. He told them about the ghetto, the American soldier, alive but fading, inside Nasiriyah General Hospital. At first, they didn't believe him. Then they realized he was telling the truth. A plan was drawn, a rescue mission unlike any before. Under the cover of darkness, helicopters swept low over the city. The blades chewed through the night like knives through silence. Black shadows descended Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Marines. The air smelled of dust and decorded. The night vision lenses glowed green. They breached the hospital doors. Expecting resistance, they moved with deadly precision room to room, hall to hall. But there was no more gunfire. The Fedayeen had fled. Only patients and the frightened nurses remained. At last, they found her, lying on a bed, pale and weak. Jessica Lynch blinked through the glare of flashlights. Jessica Lynch, a soldier whispered. Her eyes opened, barely able to focus. We've got you. You're safe now. They lifted her gently, their armor scraping against the hospital walls. Outside, the night howled with wind and the rotor blades. As the helicopter rose, she stared out into the darkness, the city below glowing with fires and the shadows. Back home in West Virginia, her parents sat by the phone when the knock came at their door. A man in uniform stood there, hat in hand. Mr. and Mrs. Lynn, he said, we have news about your daughter. For days, they had feared the worst. But when the words came, she's alive, the terrors came too, unstoppable. Their little girl had survived hell. But survival isn't victory, it's a burden. Jessica came home to cameras, interviews, and the flashing lights. They called her a hero. They told her she had inspired a nation. But at night, she lay awake, remembering the screams, the fire, the faces that never came home. She looked out her hospital window, sunlight filtering through glass. We all went in together, she whispered. Only some of us made it home. In Nasiriyah, far from the headlines, Dr. Mohammed returned to his family. He said nothing of what he had done. Only his wife noticed the quiet pride in his eyes. The world would remember the mission, the rescue, the heroism, the symbolism. But history rarely remembers the details that matter most. The chaos of confusion, the courage of the forgotten, the humanity in the middle of hate. War is never clean. It's dust, noise, and the decisions that no more one should have to make. And yet, sometimes, in that madness, light breaks through in the form of a doctor's mercy, a soldier's courage, or a survivor's strength. Because history doesn't only belong to those who win the wars. It belongs to those who live through them and they never forget what it cost.